You see in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, Paul is writing a letter to the Corinthian church. He's dealing with some problems that are rising up in this church. But what's amazing to me is that if you read the chapter before 13 and you read the chapter after 13, you're going to find some incredible things about this church. This wasn't an ordinary church. This was a gifted church. It says in chapter 12, Paul is dealing with the spiritual gifts of the church. So they were functioning in the spiritual gifts, this church. He was also encouraging them that they're one body with many members. So what that tells me is we had a lot of people in that church rising up just to be self-glorified out of there. And Paul begins to explain the things in chapter 12 that they need to fix because they're very gifted. And then he goes over to chapter 14 and he begins to speak on prophecy and tongues and on their heart of worship. Now, this church sounds amazing. They sound like they're doing great things. And then right in the middle of 12 and 13, he has to address the love issue. Says in verses 1 through 3 that we studied last week, it said, Paul tells the church this. He said, so, you speak with tongues. Great. And then he says, so you have prophetic powers and faith. Great. Good job. And then in verse 3, he says, and you give everything away that you have. Good job. Good job. But you have no love. And he goes on in in chapter 13 to say, all of those things will fade away, but love will not fade. Let me explain something to you. We here on earth, all of us have a time limit. And one day we will enter into the presence of Jesus. And your love will only grow stronger. It will not fade. But when you see him face to face, it will be even greater than it is here on earth.